Hey everybody, this is Darren Van Dam and you are watching Flick Connection, the show that helps you get more out of movies. And today I want to tell you about 10 great hidden gem movies currently available with HBO Max. So I realize a lot of you probably don't have HBO Max yet because it is a new service that just got released. Real quickly, what is HBO Max? What's the difference between it and HBO Now, HBO Go? There's a bunch of HBOs. And this video is in no way sponsored by HBO or any of its affiliates, but it is sponsored by Nirvana CBD, and I'll tell you more about their great stuff halfway through this video. But HBO Max is by far HBO's biggest service. It includes the most movies and shows because it includes everything available with HBO, which is going to be what you get when you have HBO through your cable provider, HBO Go, HBO Now. That's all just HBO. But it also includes Turner Classic Movies, Cartoon Network, and more. So they have original programming that's only for HBO Max. They have old syndicated shows like Friends that are only currently available through HBO Max. And so they have way more movies and shows than you normally get with your HBO subscription. It does cost a bit more as a result, but I am finding a lot of great movies there. Now, they are older movies that I have loved for a long time, but there's some movies that I really love that I have not seen on any other streaming services in an extremely long time. So this list actually features some movies I love that I've never talked about on this channel before. So hopefully, even if you don't have HBO Max, you get a feel for whether or not you're missing out and you want to sign up. And if you do, you'll get at least a handful of movies here that you've probably never seen before that are really great.
In a world. In a world.
Hey, make sure your phone's turned off. I think we're getting some feedback out here.
Oh. Sorry.
Ready.
Now, my number 10 pick is a comedy that's not really a rom-com at all. There are some romantic elements, but it's just sort of a nice, sweet, positive comedy called In a World. This stars Lake Bell. She also wrote and directed this movie. I think she did a killer job in all three categories. It's a fun watch that you can watch in mixed company because it's not anything too graphic or upsetting in it. And it's ultimately just a really good story. She plays a voice actor and is trying to further her career. And she's sort of held back by her father, who's a very famous voiceover guy that does not want her to be more famous than he was. Some interesting characters and just good solid stuff where it's very funny, but it doesn't feel unnatural. It doesn't feel like they're just trying to make you laugh. It just feels like it's kind of funny characters. And the story is just glued together really well. It's just a nice, well-rounded movie that I cannot remember the last time I talked about because I haven't seen it available anywhere for a while.
How can I tell you if I'm in or I'm out without you telling me the first thing about what I might be in or out of?
This would be something dangerous and very exciting.
American Animals is a really interesting heist movie. This is based on a true story about some college kids that decide to steal this priceless book, and they plan out this entire heist. And the movie does a really great job of sort of putting you there with them through the planning stages and the execution of the heist, you know, in this minivan, and it's very elaborate, the plan that they put together. And the thing I like most about it is it had sort of this really kind of fun energy about it. It was not necessarily fast paced, but it keeps moving, and I was excited, especially once the heist kicked off. It just kept me in the moment. There weren't like lulls once the heist kicks off. You know, they're not after money, they're after this book, and it's in a library on campus, but it's pretty well guarded. It made for something different. It didn't feel like something I had seen before. Thought it was really well executed. It's way, way underappreciated though.
All the world will be your enemy, prince with 1,000 enemies. And whenever they catch you, they will kill you.
Now, a movie that I've loved for a really long time that, again, I just haven't seen available anywhere is Watership Down. This is an animated film from the 80s, and it's based on a book by the same name, and it is about rabbits. Now, be warned, this is not for young children. This is an upsetting movie. There's gas, there's blood, there's death involved because it really revolves around these rabbits that are just desperately trying to survive. It's got a lot more in common with The Walking Dead than it has in common with Peter Cottontail. I'll just say that. Now, that said, it's not overly graphic. Older kids could watch it. The book is required reading in some cases, and it's a very, very good and a very classic story. But what it really is just this harrowing story of these rabbits trying to survive. They're running into other clans that maybe have ulterior motives. There's some like political things happening in the world of these rabbits that's just like this power struggle. It's wild stuff. And it's really effective from the point of view of the rabbits. Like I love it. It works so well. And I think if you like my taste a lot, you're gonna be surprised at how much you like this super old school animated movie.
It's fun to kill people. We should try it sometime.
Nobody gets away with what she did. Nobody.
Now, because this is a hidden gems list, it varies quite a lot. And Nocturnal Animals is one that I really like, but I'm not recommending it for everyone. This is actually directed by Tom Ford. Yes, the fashion designer, Tom Ford. He did another movie that was pretty decent. I happen to think Nocturnal Animals is almost like a masterpiece for him. It's really great. The only reason it's so far back is because it is an art film and it's not going to be for mass audiences. I mean, the opening title sequence features nude women that are all well over 60 and all well over 200 pounds. It's odd, but then it becomes this really tense thriller that sort of doubles back on itself. And I don't want to explain it too much because it'll give away some of the magic of this one. So I'm trying to sort of just set the stage and frame it. If you like the sound of what I'm describing and you're intrigued, I think you're gonna like this movie. It is slow paced, but it's interesting and clever and different from maybe anything you've ever seen. But by the end, it's just very clean, beautifully shot, intense at moments, very grim at moments, sort of a thriller type thing. Can't say any more than that. It's not as weird as I'm making it sound, but it's close. So watch this one with caution. But again, if you like my weirder recommendations and you like just a good thriller with some, I'm saying there's some amazing performances in this one, definitely check it out. And if that doesn't sound like you at all, you're probably gonna like my next pick a lot. It's called Anna.
You entered this hotel at 1:37 p.m. Did you notice anything suspicious?
Like what?
This is written and directed by Luc Besson, who did a whole host of great movies with female assassin type characters. La Femme Nikita, The Fifth Element, he did The Professional. So really good pedigree in terms of action movies. Now, Anna is not necessarily up there in terms of how good the movie is. Some of the acting's a little bit stiff, and it's kind of a by-the-book type female assassin story. There's nothing really special about the story, but it's beautifully shot, and the action is pretty fantastic. It's over-the-top stuff, it's impractical stuff, but it's just dazzling to watch, and it's really pervasive throughout the movie. You know, it has the standard beats of an action movie. There are lulls, but it just jumps right back into more action really quickly, and there's not long, like 30-minute stretches where there's not a lot of action going on in it. I like that a lot. And then the glue that holds it together, the story, is good enough. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just kind of the same thing you've seen a bunch of times already. I just felt like I was seeing it with different eyes because of the way it was shot. It just had this beautiful, stunning look to it. At the top of the video, I mentioned Nirvana CBD. They are a new sponsor of the show, and I'm super excited about them because I love the products myself. I have been taking CBD supplements for almost a year. I have great results with it. It is a hemp product without the THC in it, so you do not get high. I take it every day, and I find that it greatly helps me regulate my mood. I don't get angry or irritated as often. I'm much more easy to get along with. And the thing I love is I'm not feeling effects from it. It doesn't make me feel any sort of certain way. It just generally makes me a much easier person to get along with day to day, so I make sure to take it every day. And the Nirvana gummies are absolutely delicious. They're the best ones I've ever tasted, but they've got lotions, they've got tinctures for under your tongue, oils and other products. I tend to prefer the gummies over anything, especially when they taste as good as the Nirvana ones. So again, try the link in the description, and if you do try them, let me know in the comments below what you think. But let's go ahead and move on with my top 5 on this list. Man Bites Dog is a dark comedy I have been wanting to talk about on this channel for a long time, and this is the first time I've seen it available anywhere. This movie's part of the Criterion Collection. It's French language. It's sort of a documentary style, black and white, from the early 90s, and it is wild. It features this camera crew following a murderer through his day-to-day routine, and then things start to get a little bit hairy, start to come a little bit undone, and so that's wild enough to watch. Like, it's got this really kind of funny sense of humor. It's not hitting you over the head with humor. It's dark stuff, but it's constantly sort of like referencing back at itself and just sort of doing a wink and a nod at the camera. So that part's great. And then the story gets really muddy as the camera crew start to maybe get a little bit too involved with what the guy's doing. So it just makes for a really great watch. It's sort of this hidden gem classic that I really hope more people discover going forward. So if you have access to it, definitely check this one out. Just be aware, it is a French language black and white movie from the early 90s. It's weird, it's not like anything you're used to seeing, but it's a ton of fun and just makes for a really interesting and different watch. One more foreign language movie and then I'm done with foreign language stuff, and it's one of Guillermo del Toro's early movies. It's called Chronos. Now this one's actually mixed language. There is some English in it because Ron Perlman is one of the main characters. I do have to give a little bit of a spoiler just to tell you what it's about and get you interested to see it, but it's basically the synopsis of the movie is that it's a vampire movie somewhat. It's very different from any other vampire movie you've seen, which is why I recommend it. And Guillermo del Toro is just brilliant at this sort of like gothic type story. It's very dark. That's like this great story that's specific to itself. Like I'm not feeling like I'm watching the same thing over and over again. This story only exists within the world of Chronos, and it works maybe only within the world of Chronos. I really like that about it. That's a very weird way for me to describe it, but I feel like this movie is unique unto itself. If you consider yourself to be a fan of Guillermo del Toro's work, movies like Hellboy, Pan's Labyrinth, The Shape of Water, I find Chronos to be one of his best, probably up in his top 3 or 4. Point Blank is a really badass movie from 1967 starring Lee Marvin. I've loved this movie for a really long time. It's super cool, and while it does feel like it comes out of the 60s because it's got a little bit of a psychedelic, sort of trippy nature to it at times, it also feels like it was way ahead of its time. This movie has more in common with something like Drive than it does with anything that was coming out back then. I love that aspect of this movie. I love how just sort of badass Lee Marvin is in it. He's not sort of playing by the rules. And then it's just shot in this really cool way with like slow motion and weird sort of like flashbacks and stuff that somehow manages to work. And it's this gritty story too. There is somewhat of a remake that's maybe a little more well known. That's Payback with Mel Gibson. It's the same story, same general characters, but a different feel, but not that different. So if you love the Mel Gibson one, which I do, that's just a cool sort of pulpy movie, definitely check out Point Blank because I think it's better because it's a little more rich with sort of the art film nature. And again, just a really cool flick.
All night long I listen to that sound.
What sound?
The sound of money. I want out. I can't do it alone.
I have an idea how to make this work.
Now, one that's maybe not as good as some of the others that I just mentioned, but is the better recommendation because it's just so accessible and so fun to watch, and it is the definition of a hidden gem. is Bound. This stars Gina Gershon and Jennifer Tilly, and they do play lovers in the story, and there is a pretty intense sex scene between the two of them, so fair warning or a heads up on that, depending on how you feel about it, but it's a cool little gangster crime flick. Now, this is actually directed by the Wachowskis and was done right before The Matrix. In fact, the studio did not want to let them direct The Matrix, so they said, I tell you what, we'll give you $1 million to make a different movie, see how you do with that, and if you do a good job, then you can direct The Matrix. Bound is that movie, and it's way different than The Matrix. There's nothing sci-fi about it. It's just this sort of like one-night crime caper thing, and then it just gets really complicated and intense. It really showcased how good they were at directing, because it's this complicated plan and it keeps jumping back and forth between different rooms, yet they did a good job of keeping it moving, and you always know where everybody is and what's happening. It's just a fun watch. It's a fun crime watch. Definitely check that one out if you've never seen it. It's a high recommendation from Darren Van Dam.
Single red ant could have eaten it faster.
And then Dragged Across Concrete is one that I loved last year. It just came out recently, as did Anna. I don't think I mentioned that. But this is done by the same director as Bone Tomahawk and Brawl in Cell Block 99. This feels kind of like it exists within Tarantino's world, almost as if it's the real story that Tarantino then bases his kind of over-the-top characters on, because it's got this weird element to it, yet it still feels real at the same time. I've described it that way to other people, and they have agreed 100%. Like, I don't feel confident that that makes sense, but other people have told me, like, yes, that makes perfect sense based on the tone of this particular movie. I like that a lot. It's this great crime movie with a heist element, and the pacing, again, is very different from what you're used to, yet it somehow manages to work. If you typically like my recommendations on this channel, this, obviously it's number one, is a strong recommendation for me. So let me know in the comments which of the movies here you plan on watching. Also, if this video gets enough likes and views, I will do more HBO Max videos in the future. But let's thank the Patreon supporters. I mentioned it before. When I do videos like this that may not necessarily do well, I'm able to do it because of the Patreon support. If you want to become a Patreon supporter, there's a link in the description. If you want to join the channel, there is now a join button. It's just another way to support the show. They both have different benefits. Check them out, see if they're for you, but I will keep making videos like this one as long as you keep watching them. Thanks for watching this one, and you will see me on the next one.